I'm trying to qualify for a £12,000 final here today at the Glebe fishery in Leicestershire. It's the On The Flyer TV Winter Classic event, one of the very early qualifiers, and I'm dying to get into the final. I really want to get in it. Peg 5 on pool 1. Now, tricky area this, not because there's not a lot of fish here, but this is a very carpy area and that's probably going to impact our fish today. So I've covered my options with a lot of lines. I don't know where I'm going to end up catching the silvers because there's a lot of carp this end of the lake. Might have to fish long for them if the carp come close, might have to fish close, hoping the carp stay long, but I've covered my options and I've set up quite a few different lines. I've got a short line on a top kit and one in front of me, just on a top three, bottom of the shelf, just onto the hard bottom, and then I've, in a very similar depth of water, just coming out of full depth, sort of 4 foot, I've plumbed up next to the bushes to my right and left as well. I'm probably going to start here, see what vibe I get, and then if it's great, I might stay short all day, but I've also plumbed up a couple of lines long as well, one for pellets and one for ground bait with the options of feeding some worms and some dead maggots in it. But I honestly think today's going to be really interesting because it's going to be a feel your way into it kind of day. I don't know what to expect weight wise. I'd be very, very happy if I got to sort of £30 plus. This lake has weights up to £100 of skimmers, so whether it's going to be that kind of day, I'm not sure. We've had a lot of rain, it's cool, the first sort of autumnal / winter weather's kicked in, so I think that'll knock them massive weights down. But £40 would be absolutely amazing, £30 would be a big thumbs up, but it's definitely got a chance of qualifying. This only one person goes through today, so we've got to win the match, so we'll be fishing positively, all the options are covered, ready to rock and roll. That's it, gang. So starting off, I'm going to feed my pellet line first. I've got a little nugget of pure ground expander, sort of a walnut size, and then a small palmful of micros. I'm going to pot that up just short of 12.5 metres. The wind's blowing towards me, so I'm just going to feed everything back a little bit to compensate for that rig blowing in. Feeding that first because that's where I'm going to kick off, that's where I'm going to start. So I want to give that line the most time to sort of settle while I'm feeding the other ones now. The second line I'm feeding, I've got a nice mix here of F1 dark and F1 sweet, and I've mixed it really wet, and as you can see there, I've got in it some finely chopped worms, a few dead maggots and a few micros. I'm going to feed that the other side to my right on that long line. So out there in open water, I've got both options covered of ground bait, if that's what they want to come over, and also pellets. Don't know if you saw, but I'm not actually squeezing it into a ball. I'm just like getting it loose in my pot and just pressing it in. And I'm going to feed 2 loose pots of that out there. Look at that slick that comes off that mix. It's awesome. Stinks to high heaven. I hope that they like it today. Again, just a little bit back so that I've got the option of fishing just past it, and also my rig blows in. And then short, I've got a few different lines on the go close in. The first one's just on a top kit plus one in front of me, where I'm going to feed a nice nugget of ground bait full of worms. And that's just at the bottom of the near side slope, still on the hard bottom. I'm going to feed the same either side as well. I've got a feeling we're going to have some issues from carp today, and to combat that I've got a few different areas on the go, because if you're hooking them you often have to move about quite a lot. So if it's good, I can always sack off a few lines, but I just want to make sure that I've got a few areas to fish if we need them to start with. I've got one in front of me and I got one down to my right. I've also plumbed up to my left, but I don't know if I'm going to fish there or not yet. Might just fish that top 4 in front of me. I can feed that other one if I need it. And then starting, I'm going to go straight in on pellets and see if we can get a quick start. Got a 1/2 gram Mick Wilkinson signature range wire pinger float on. Lovely and stable. 4mm neutral expander, 16 LWG. I'm just going to start by rattling in with my sprinkle pot some soaked 2mm activated pellets. Come on, skimbalinas. Breezy today, right in the mush as well. Start of the session, always like to sprinkle a few in, just think it gets a bit more going on in your swim, bit of activity, creates a nice slow fall of the bait. Like I said, I fed this line first out of them all because that's the one that I wanted to start on, so it's had a little bit of time. Only sort of 3, 4, 5 minutes, but hopefully enough for a few fish just to gather. No bites so far. Just got a bulk on that rig, 013 main line, little bulk of number 9s, about 30 centimetres from the hook length loop, 2 number 9 droppers, and a 6-inch 010 supernatural hook length. We've heard a bit of splashing already left and right, definitely a few little fish being caught. Hopefully when we clonk into one it'll be like a 4-pound big brown bream. This sort of stage in these matches, important to just have a little look about and take note of what other people are catching. I know lad to my left's caught 3 or 4 fish. Can't really see where he's fishing because there's a tree in the way, but he's definitely not fishing far out. Might be a case of quick start on that shorter line could have been better. Only been going a few minutes, but give it 5, maybe another feed, and then, oh no, that's not what we want, lads. God, there's Chuck. Not ideal. If that happens again, we'll definitely be coming close in, folks. Not going to lie. I expected to hook a few today. Didn't expect to hook one first chuck on. Pellet over a little blob of micros. A few more, just sort of half fill that pot. Have another go. Weird really, you wouldn't probably sprinkle in micros and fish an expander for carp, but you definitely like it. Especially this time of year, most people will probably be coming here fishing hard pellets and corn and things. One thing I will say though, on these kind of lakes, what you do find is where there's a lot of carp in the cooler months, there's normally a lot of bream live with them. So it's always worth sort of putting up with the problems from carp. Because you only need one run of big bream on these and you know, you're right up there. £30 sounds a lot, but catch it in no time with the right size fish. It's a little bit more sort of a skimmery indication. Little dink. Got a little back shot, number 8, in between my pole tip and my float, just to keep that float as still as possible on top of the bait. Quite tricky when that wind's blowing towards you. So important to compensate for it. Like my rig's definitely blowing sort of 6-7 inches inside my pole tip there. So when I feed, I'm sort of bringing my pot back to where I think my float's going to end up and rattling them pellets in. If I want to fish past them, I've got a little dolly butt I can put on, but it's a little fish. Little skimmer, fell off, never mind. I'm not allowed to swear on this one, folks. I've been warned by Toby and Rimmer, if they fall off, don't swear. But in my head now, I am swearing. I can see them chuckling behind, look. Hopefully though, that were a little skimmer that. Hopefully there's a few more of them out there and about there. Try it again. Come on, you little flipper curious sausages. There, oh, a little bumped one then. Only a tiny fish, looked like a roach or something. I'll give it one more feed, gang. And just see if any have come in. And if not, I'm gonna have a little go short. I'm also going to bite a 13 cube off so my float stuck out a bit more so I can see it. You want it low, but not as low as I've got it. He's catching a few skimmers next to me. I think he's called Steve. Fish with him quite a bit. Good angler. That's how you sort of want it in. Feed your bait under. Little skimmer. First one, probably 4 or 5 ounce. Typical pellet fish. I mean, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, not very big. I'm going to have to catch one every chuck. Throw a few casters there. If it got going at that sort of rate, would be good. Need to catch them fish quite quickly if you're going to amass any 30-40 pound of them sort of thing, but I've not been going for long. I'm hoping that they weren't here and they've just sort of turned up. There we go, a little one. You allowed to swing them? Yeah, they're only 3 or 4 ounce things, aren't they? Got to catch them fish pretty quick and positively if you're going to amass a weight. So don't be scared to be a bit aggressive. But there, I mean, I sort of fished for what, 8-9 minutes, just up to one carp and bumped a skimmer. But then they've sort of arrived, gathered. So perhaps they weren't in the area and now they are. I'm leaning back to feed and then pushing my pole out, so I'm just on that back edge of it. For a bit of speed, I'm going to knock this pot off the top of here, put on a little prototype fast release pot, and I'm just going to see if we can keep catching now they're there by just dumping that bait in one go. It'll just save me a little bit of time every time I ship out. And flick my rig out in position, put my bait in, and it's all a bit quicker. I ain't got to mess about sprinkling. Not very big, but they're definitely there now. A bit quicker to fill up if you can get away with what you'd probably call clumping and baiting. It's quicker to fill your pot up and it's quicker to release it. But sometimes you lose a little bit of attractiveness of them pellets falling. That's why we've got these new pots coming out. Andy Bennett's designed them, but he just felt there was a need for a real fast release pot, and then obviously the ones that we've already got that are good for sprinkling bait in and rattling hard baits in, but he wanted a proper fast release pot for doing this, you know, dipping it on the water, bait melting out of it, dead quick, get your bait out in one sudden go. Playing around with that is something that you can do when you're doing this sort of fishing. General rule, harder it is, the more you want to be sprinkling bait to get a column of feed going. Lots and lots of attraction. And the better it is, the more you'll err towards dumping it out in one sudden go. So it all gets to the bottom, you're nice and efficient. It's a little bit of a tighter area. You do lose a little bit of attractiveness. Carp. You can have a little look on this closer line before it gets going too much, because if they're there, that could be us settled in for the day fishing it. Put the head of a worm on. Nice little bait for everything that swims, sort of thing. 0.4 of a gram F1 slim. I'm just going to feed little nuggets, not every chuck, but little nuggets of me wet worm and pellet rich mix. And just plop my rig on top of it. If we can catch there, it could be a lot quicker than out there, and might even start feeding out there to try and keep them carp away. That was a carp that I bumped then out long. Weird that we got that little run of skimmers and then funny indications and bumped one straight away. And if this doesn't work, we can go back out there. But I just wanted to give myself the chance of trying it early. Because if it is good, that could be us settled in for catching quickly here for the rest of the match. Got a win today, so to qualify anyway. So we need to be thinking and fishing positively. What we got to see if you can catch them close in there. Could be quicker. Surprised how many small skimmers there are. Didn't think there were that many of them in the Glebe. I thought we'd be catching like, not as many, but bigger brown ones. The older fish. Obviously there's a few of them in here. By fishing here though, we can just sort of build it up. Throw a few casters. Pot an odd little ball of that stodge. It could be a good line this, if it gets going. Got 16 F1 pellet on this and pink hydro, just a little bit nicer and lighter. For fishing like a little wormhead. I've just got a little piece of dendrobina on the fattest bit. A little bit bigger than the size of a pea sort of thing. Kind of like a 4mm pellet, I suppose. You can catch them there. We could be a lot quicker, you know. Put a little bit bigger nugget hanging out my pot like a health sat. Try this next few minutes, just try and get a bit more ground bait on bottom over a few feeds, see if it gets any better, and if not, definitely going to be a case of building these lines up for later on. Probably will resort to loose feeding on this one. And again, if you can just catch them nicely on the bottom. Feed again with the ball. See if we can pin them down. Feels slow, but if you can get catching at this distance, you can catch quick, and this is where I want to finish the match, catching some big uns. And bigger bream should move in later. If I can be fishing here and building it up and feeding it, would like to. At the minute it's like just on the cusp of not good enough. Double maggot on, bit of a bigger, more visual upbait. Still not loose feeding. because I'm on a little bit of a slope, I'm just potting that nugget of feeding sort of 5 or 6 inches back, and then flicking my rig out past so it settles on the slope. So hopefully I'm just on like the back edge of that ball by the time everything's set. I can always lift my rig up and drop it right on top of it. But then as fish come in and break it down, it'll just crumble down that bit of a slope and you end up with a nice area to fish on. It's just not good enough. Not going under enough at the moment. That's alright. Oh, they're what we want, boys and girls. They are what we want. A few of them early would be nice. Hurry up, he's got a face like Rimmer, that one, look. Now that changes a few things. I have to stay on this and have another little look there. That one double maggot. They're the fish I thought we'd be catching. I didn't think we'd be catching as many of them little skimmers as we have. Lovely to get settled into some of them earlier on, wouldn't it? But they're what I'd expect to come here later. Sort of last half of the match. Don't mind sitting and waiting for a while for a bite if you get one and it's £1+ fish. Don't mind at all. Perch. Little skimmer. This is getting going a little bit now. Just seems to be a bit of I'm just going to put a bit of a stronger up length on if I'm swinging a few of them. Off at 0.12 instead of 0.10. Definitely feels a little bit more settled now, not loose feeding and regular little nuggets. Maybe they wanted a bit of ground bait on the bottom to start with. I was very wary about sort of big potting loads in here to begin in case we were on a bit of a carp fest. But odd little skimmer, odd better one mixed in, I'd be happy. Especially if it's going to be a 30 to 40 pound day. Pink hydro is lovely for them. You can sort of not too heavy that you bump them, but you can still swing them 3-4 ounces. nice to catch them not loose feeding, because I feel like you can quietly just sneak them little nuggets in. You're not making any noise of loose feed it in the water that's likely to draw the carp in. If you can get away without doing it, even better. Double maggot seems better hook bait as well, a bit more positive. Plumbed up so that I'm bit over depth, maybe an inch and a half on bottom, especially when I just nudge it up the slope a little bit. Probably an inch and a half, just so sort of the body of the float and a tiny bit of stem sticking out when the plummet's on the bottom. And I've got the float dotted right down. Feel like when it's not too windy, that's about right for skimmers and silvers. Enough for some stability, but when they suck it in, you still see your bites. Feels quite nice now, this, folks. Happier with it. Bit of patience, just settle in. Little nougats of the magic mix, micras, worms, an F1 ground baits, dark and sweet. Oh, missed that one. Little bugger, nicked me maggot. Tiny little dinky bites they are there. Nice little slim float, F1 carbon 0.45, and shotting wise I've got 3 number 10s and then up to number 9s strung out in the bottom third of the rig, so the bottom 3 are number 10s and then the rest of the shot are 9s, just so it falls in a nice little arc. Positive, but still get a bit of a on the droppiness to it. Feel like that's nice for silvers. Good chance of one seeing it fall. Still a good bit of stability and it's nice and quick to get down. So now we're gone. Feel like we've had a slow start, I'd say, but I'm not bothered by that. I don't think the fishing's amazing looking round. Bit of a weird one really. I thought we'd get off to a better start on pellets and it just didn't really seem to be going anywhere. The fish were very, very small. And that sort of spurred me on to come in closer in, because I feel like if we're catching them mixed size fish, them little skimmers, might as well try and catch them closer so we're quicker, and we also have the chance of catching an odd better one mixed in. But catching them closer, you can be a little bit quicker. You can swing them, feed quickly, everything's a little bit more efficient. So, and if I'm honest, I was just about to come off this line and all I did was switch to double maggot hook bait and just fed a little bit more positively, and a nugget in my pot every single chuck. Quit the loose feeding and it's settling down now. Definitely need to feed a bit, you know. Maybe guilty of being a little bit negative at the start. They like that blob going in pretty much every chuck. They must be clearing it out, because if you don't feed one at least every other drop in, you don't catch any. So there's probably more fish there than we think. So like I fed that time before then when I had that, and now I'm going to not feed this chuck, and then I'll feed again next chuck. It's just about remembering when you have and haven't. That way, definitely not going to blow it to pieces with bait too early. Still feel like I'm being positive. So hopefully we'll get a bite this chuck, and then we can feed again next time. So it's every other drop in, plop a little nougat in. Quite wet, the mix that I'm feeding. I've got a medium pole pot on, one of the originals. I'm just feeding a piece like sort of size of the end of my thumb. Maybe like in between a 50 and a 20 pence piece size, but it's wet, very, very wet and stodgy. So it's going straight to the bottom, pinning them down there. Just gonna check. I can avoid having them odd little quiet spells by like dropping in on another line. Yeah, it's a little bit shallower. I could plumb it there. If I fed a little nugget there, then I'd have 2 lines to fish close in. Maybe keep them coming even quicker. Just in line with the edge of that bit of an island. Just going to feed a blob. Got them 2 spots then. Might just keep me catching a little bit. Might just keep me catching a little bit more consistently, because it's little weird spells at the minute. Just gonna have a little swing round onto that line already. Sort of only just fed this a few minutes ago, but I just wanted somewhere that catching in spells. So it's the same depth on the same slope, just further along, and I'm hoping I can drop in here and get a little run, then drop back there, get a little run. If I can keep catching close in, which is great. Just fed that same worm mush there, ground bait micros worms. Might have to go back to maybe loose feeding a bit of bait to bring them back. No bites there, that's disappointing. Disappointed that didn't go on that other line. That was my chance to like keep catching. Maybe just trying to overcomplicate it, and I just need to work through it on this one line. Seems to have gone a bit there now, folks. I'm going to I'm going to feed it and feed my other one that I originally fed next to the tree sort of thing. And just go along because I'm not getting any bites now. So I'm going to put a bit of a bigger nugget in, come off it, there's not a lot we can do. The bigger ball there, and I'm going to put another one down this side here. And then just have a little look on that ground bait line out there because not really going anywhere there. 2 dead maggots. I haven't refed this ground bait line yet, just them 2 pots at the start. So I'm really hoping that there's some sat, gathered, waiting. What would be ideal now is little runner better ones here, just to take us to the middle of the march. And then come back shore and empty it there later. We'll see. Quick bite. I mean, if we get one that quick every shot, we would be sliding our little knacky noonars off, wouldn't we, Tobes? Yep, nice and miserable cameraman. He's not talking to me because it's raining. Gonna throw an odd maggot short. Be a bit more positive. For an hour and a half in. Just think I fed that an hour and a half ago. Amazing how long them skimmers will sit over ground bait for. They'll just sit on top of it, just chilling out. Some more worms there if we need them. Small fish, but putting something in net, man, innit? 2 dead maggots. This rig, 0.5 of a gram pinger again, but it's just got that same strung style shotting pattern in the bottom third that my short rig's got. I mean, if they stayed there like that, it would be awesome. Net that one, Matthew. Don't be an idiot on your live match. Amazing how they've gathered over that bit of ground bait. What that does tell me is one of my close lines here now, I might think about potting a bit more ground bait in and letting them gather. So say that one in the edge there, I might actually put a bigger pot of ground bait, a few dead maggots and bits of worms and micas, basically what I fed out there, and just, I mean, that feels like a carp. I know there's some tench in here. Could easily be a tench, that, like judded. When I struck it, like judded a little bit. I remember we used to fish on here and there used to be some tench. If I've called it and it is a tench, I need knighting, don't I? But it's probably going to be a little carp, let's face it. Oh my God, it's a tench. When I I first hooked it, I thought, oh, you thought that were a tench when I first hooked it, and it no swearing in today's live match. Oh, never mind. It were right on the top of the snout. I could see me 2 maggots. You can tell when you hook them, they like judder off. And that's exactly what that one did. Hopefully we'll get another one of them. I'm going to just feed a little ball out there because that little run and then gone. It's definitely a bit slower. Top up with a little ball of my original mix here. Not a big one, just like a sort of a one-hander job, eh? One of them. And then I'm going to feed some more ground bait short because that's definitely what they seem to be settling over at the minute today. This other edge here, I'm going to feed a little bit more positive, put like a decent potting down there. Just because of what's happening out long, I feel like it can be a bit more positive with ground bait. That's the vibes I'm getting at the moment. A couple of dead maggots. And when I've just fed then, when I go out I'm just going to flick it back past a little bit. I always feel like with skimmers when you top up, the first few drops in you just sort of fish on the back edge of it. Tend to get a bit of a quicker response rather than waiting for them to come in. Let's see. Be nice if they do come back to this little bit of feed. Yeah, nice. What's nice now is I've got a couple of places I can catch them. A few bites out there, and I hopefully can keep dropping short and getting a run there if this fades. Come here, little devil. Going to do a little mix for topping up. Nice and damp ground bait, a few dead maggots, a few bits of worms, a few micros. just for out there, and because it's looking like we might need to top up a little bit more regular. They love a feed, don't they? They love a feed. Little top up seem to be working. That mix I've got out there, it's not the really worm rich one, because it's soft bottom out there. I don't want millions of particles in the ground bait to send them crazy in the bottom. It's just a nice mix of the ground bait with a few maggots and micros mixed through it. Just feel on a soft bottom, like out there it's silty. Don't think you can get away with shafting a load of particles in, whereas on the harder bottom, closer in, where they're not going to bury into the sill, I feel like there you can be a bit more aggressive and feed more bait. So I've got the two ground baiting mixers, one that's really rich in food for the closer line, and then one that's a little bit more ground baiting, not as many particles for out there. Just so that ground bait just sits on top of the silt and my hook bait will stand out a little bit more. Hoping that closer in we'll get some runs of them better ones later. Interesting, I just put a single maggot on then. And I know it's nothing, but it just seems to take longer to get a bite than double. It was the same on that closer line, you get one. Tiny little fish, look. Mad out bait can make so much difference. You'd think they'd just grab whatever. We'll stick two back on this time, let's see. You might notice sometimes like hold the pole in between my legs, and I sometimes hold it normally, and I'm just trying to get a vibe for whether the fish are like on the back edge of the bait, just past it, or right on top of it. Don't really seem to make that much difference at the minute, but sometimes you can catch so much quicker and cleaner. What I mean by that is not bump as many and lose as many by just fishing on the back edge of your bait. I mean, it's not making a difference today, but that's the reason why you've probably seen me, you know, sometimes fishing with a pole between my legs on my spray bar, and other times holding it where I'm putting my bait in. I've just got that option of fishing back edge and just past my bait, or holding the pole and fishing right on top of it, sort of thing. I'm just going to change my elastic to a yellow hydro. I just feel like I bumped an odd on this pink. Distinct lack of bigger fish, but at the minute, you know, I've had to go short. I've had to go on pellets. So if the bigger fish preferred pellets, I'm pretty convinced they didn't. Either that or there's none there. We've had to go short. We've had that one better one. But I think that was just a lucky fish. And out here over a lot of ground bait, not had a bigger one yet. So maybe we're not in an area where them bigger bream live, or maybe it's going to be a case of we're going to have to catch them later, which I'm hoping that's the case, and I'm hoping it'll happen. But at the minute, I feel like we've got our options covered for it. We've got a line in a bit shallower water, where I'm being a little bit more aggressive with ground bait. And then we've got the line bottom of the first shelf where we caught them few earlier. We're just potting them little nuggets in. So, options wise, I feel pretty covered at the minute. And then we've got this one where we're just ticking over catching odd fish now. It's not about winning it in the first few hours, but it's just about making sure we're well in contention, and then we can make some moves in them last 90 minutes or so, sort of last 2 hours. For me now, it's just about putting odd fish in the net, keeping catching odd uns. It's actually easier said than done. You get little runs of them. Wind's a pain in the backside as well. It's gusty and breezy, and it's blowing your float all over. That back shot, I've got a number 8 in between my pole and float tip. So important for this kind of thing, just to keep your line down and your float still. I feel like we could feed again already. It's strange how positive you seem to be able to be. Normally these little skimmers, you have to you can get away with just feeding a ball and catching on it for a good while, whereas these seem to want it shafting in at them. I'm just really worried you can easily blow your peg to pieces feeding too positively. These other two fed. Closer one. They're going to be where we can do some damage later, hopefully. So even if you're catching out there, you cannot ignore them. You've got to keep them fed. I mean, look at that, straight on top of that bait. Definitely want feeding. It shows, doesn't it? As much as you go skimmer fishing and that, every place you go is different. Topping up this much with that amount of bait, generally end up blowing it to pieces and feeding too much foul looking them, but seem to be eating it all here. Right back on it. Slightly better fish. This is what we want. This is exactly what we want, folks. Feeding, building it up. Odd better one. It might be foul looked. It's not. Now the ones that we want, a few more of them would be very nice, sirs and madams. Got out here similar to that close. I've probably got a little bit more line on the bottom out there, maybe two 2.5 inches. I feel like it's a nice amount for skimmers. I think the key is, with this sort of fishing, you need your bait still on the bottom, but you need not too much line on, so when they suck it in and move, you still see an indication. I think if they've got too much time to get away with it, they'll end up feeling your hook, line, rig and blowing it out. Whereas just that nice little bit of line on bottom, enough to hold it still for how they want it, but not too much that they're going to eject it before you see the bite, or you end up bumping them and missing bites, getting funny indications that can be frustrating. That one key thing with skimmer fishing is just getting that right amount of line on the bottom. It's a balance of stability and bite indication. This will prove it, because that's the quickest I've fed after refeeding again. If you're straight back on this, then it really does show that they're happy to have some bait put on their heads. Time wise, where are we at? Just over 2 hours. Would have liked to have caught an odd better one, but it's definitely okay. Lad to my left on the end peg, he's catching well, and he got off to a better start than me as well. Could have done with getting that tench in. That's annoying, but just come off. It were up right on the top of the head, I could see it. Probably lucky to hook it in first place, to be fair, but could have really done with getting that out. Another pound and a half, decent fish. Feel now like when I'm topping up now, it's going a bit weird, as in could be getting a bit too much bait in the peg, bumping odd and missing an odd un. So I'm gonna still got to be positive, just need to be really careful now when I'm topping up not to overdo it. Might be a case of feeding it, coming and having a little look short, seeing if we can catch any there, and then going back, letting a few gather, rather than just drilling it into the ground on top of them and relentlessly feeding it. Like, they definitely come into bait, but it's not just a case of shafting it in. Last couple of times I've fed now, I've had like a few missed bites, bumped an odd un, and that's signs that there's a lot of bait there, too much bait, and they're not picking up the up bait cleanly and confidently. So I'm going to be wary of that after this feed. Every time I've topped up out there, I have fed my closer 2 lines as well. I mean, the perfect scenario will be drop short and catch a few better ones, nip long, keep putting a little 1 or 2 in the net. Really, really wary as well. We haven't had the invasion of the cyprinids yet, the carp. Like this time, for example, that's probably the worst response I've had from a feed out there. I caught one straight away, but then It's lulling now. So as soon as this starts happening, maybe if the feed's not working, it's time to come off it, let a few gather. Whatever you can feed, go in, get a run. Feed, go in, get a run. That's good, but as soon as you're feeding, going in, and it's iffy, maybe that's a time that a rest's needed. It's always worth sitting just for a minute or two, because the other reason it could have lulled is because there's a few better fish there. You want to give yourself the chance of finding out if they are. Come on, let's have an odd big bream. Getting towards that middle bit of match. It'd be nice to have a little spell of them now. Yeah, I like that one. That'll do. Just called it, didn't I then? Now what we want. Just like worth 5 or 6 of them little ones. You can sneak an odd one of them in between. They just make a massive difference. Probably a pound and a bit. Nice and settled again now. I've just been a little bit more patient and not continuously rafting it in. Like that last feed, then I felt like it was slow after it, so I haven't pushed it. And definitely, they've just settled again. The one thing I'd say about skimmer fishing, commercial silverfish fishing in general, is it's different at different stages during the day, and how you need to feed at the start can be different to the middle, the end, and that adaptability and just managing your peg through the day is really important. It's very difficult as well. It's easy to get it wrong, and of course things like carp coming in throw a right spanner in the works, because they can just totally blow it to pieces, like we'll probably see in a bit. But of course it's early season, so just a bit of info hopefully help you out if you're going to do a bit of this. Like at the minute, seems better holding it in between my legs and just flicking the rig into the left downwind, just because it's easy to do it, and then holding my rig to the right so it falls in nice and slow. And a lot of my bites are just coming as that last dropper settles, my hook length just kicks in, the float just dinks and they're on. And that's fish that are gathered around your bait, and obviously your hook bait just comes in, drifts down next to them, and they just go and pick it up. A lot of people think a spray bar is all about just being able to hold your pole in wind and holding a rig still, but it's good for actually putting a rig in the water if you want to do it nice and smoothly, because you can flick your rig out straight and then hold the pole still as your rig falls in, so you're not wobbling your float about as it falls. So like now I've just flicked that to the left and then I'm holding my float. I'm just letting it fall in slow. Let's see if we get a bite as it settles. So it's just coming round now. Dunk, there you go. That, slightly smaller one and a slightly longer weight, that bite, that's my sign to feed, I'm saying. Another ball, just like a one-handed size ball. Whiz that one out there. And then I'm going to feed them 2 closer lines still as well. My hook's just gone a bit blunt. When you're hooking a maggot, if you feel it like nip through it, and there's a little bit of resistance, always change it. I mean, you probably still carry on catching, but try not to get an upworm fight and just drop it in the wind like I did then as well. But massive fan of having like the sharpest hook possible. I've said it in a few of the live matches, and as soon as you think it's not, just change it. Because that next chuck could be the 3-pounder. Or 3-pounder. Again, I'm just fed, so it'll be interesting to see what response we get here. I'm kind of expecting a little bit of unsettledness, and then hopefully we'll settle into another run on it. I think the reason it gets a bit unsettled straight after a feed is obviously because there's so much bait there. Feels a bit weird, that, like something a bit different. Might just be a little bit better skimmer. Nice, the maggots. Got another one in them. Yeah, the reason you can often feed and send it a bit weird straight away is because obviously there's a sudden amount of bait gone in, so the fish have got a lot more options other than just your hook bait. They can be a bit more picky, and that's why maybe it's a bit crazy and you miss a few bites and bump a few until they thin it down again. And that's the reason I like to fish on the back edge or just past it straight away when I've topped up. Two and a half hours in, halfway through, still fishing out long, but every time I top up out here, I'm feeding me closer lines. I'm really happy with how this is going. Catching a fish, most drops in. Not as many better ones as I thought we'd be getting, but just hoping it's the same for everyone. Chunky little fish, can swing most of them, sort of 3 ounce things, 3-4 ounce. Odd slightly better one, but not enough of the slightly better ones. I think to win, we're going to need to make something happen on one of these closer lines. But still happy to do this for another half hour, and I think the longer we can leave and feed them others, maybe the more chance of an arrival of better fish there'll be. I've got two options. I've got the one that I'm throwing some maggots on and potting ground bait, bottom of the first slope, and then I've got another one that's just a bit more in the edge and out of full depth, where sometimes you catch them odd better bream. Amazing how many bites come just as your rig settles. You'd think that all the fish would be head down on the bottom buried, but they must just see that maggot like there, dunk. Oh, come off that one. Little devil. Must just see that bait fall down past them and just plop down to pick it up. Just staying on this line at the minute, folks, like it's almost too good to come off for the middle part of the match. Definitely positive feeding's good, plenty of bait, regular, oh you little devil, plenty of ground bait. Actually put an LWG on instead of an F1 pellet. Just something a bit thicker and a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger. Bumping an odd in at minute. Sorry, as I was saying, it's almost too good to come off it because catching one most drops in. They're not massive fish, but all the time I'm feeding that closer line for later. And if I can get an arrival of better ones there as well, we're in with a shout. Feeding wise though, definitely more positives better. Putting in regular with ground bait. Not tons and tons of particles in it. I think that's important. Don't think you can feed the size of the bullseye on like a nice one-hander. Don't think you can feed one of them full of bait every time because you just end up with too many particles in your peg. But mainly ground bait with just an odd worm. Definitely not as good with that bigger hook on though. Look at that, missed another bite then. But odd worm, odd dead maggot in it. And just be confident to keep doing it. Definitely taking this hook back off and putting an F1 pellet back on now. I'm going to change back now. Right, better get a bite quicker on this hook. Lighter weight, a little bit finer wire gauge, they're watching it falling. Dink, look at that. This is what we need, like odd, slightly better one, just mixed in. Like them. More and more of them would be better. Definitely better if we could catch a few more of them better ones. Definitely lulling a little bit out there. I think after the next feed out there, I'm going to have a little look short and just see. Just, if anything, just to give this that little break. And then I can maybe come back in and nail a few on another good run. Might give an opportunity for a few better ones to settle out there as well. So hard because I am still catching an odd one. It's a One thing I'll say is if I do come off it, it's not like I'm kinder potting a ball every chuck or rattling pellets in and I need to be doing it every cast. The way that I'm feeding, I can plop a nice sized ball out there, come off it, have a little go short, see what the crack is. Still an odd one there though, and a decent fish. Now they're not big, but little lull now, time to feed. I'm going to feed it, but I'm actually going to feed my close line, then this, and have a little look close in. 2 hours to go. Just because if we can rattle a few out closer now, could be epic. I'll plop a ball in close. Decent size one, just trying to learn from what we've learnt out there. And then we feed out long. Because obviously that's working. I want to maintain that. If this short line doesn't work, I want to be able to go back out there and continue catching an odd un. I've got this cheeky line here just out full depth, well out of full depth. 2 maggots, same bait again. Just trying to sort of learn from what we've done out there, and it'd be great if this starts to shoot under here. Bite straight away, that's a good sign. They're not there. No numbers. I'm catching too well long to come off it. A quick drop in that shallow water, make sure they're not there either. And then back out long, I'm saying. Reason I've tried this one is I'm just wary I've been netting a lot of my fish right close to that line in front of me. I just wonder if they'll have just settled out of the way on this one. At the minute, it's a no for the short lines, which is nice because it allows us to just settle back out there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a big pot of feed on that one down that shallower water, so I ain't got to worry about feeding it again while I'm out there. Two big pots of ground bait. And let's get back on that longer line. And just try and keep catching out there now. Right, so I'm just doing top up mix for the rest of the match, so I ain't got to mess about adding any bait to it. I'm going to have a minute and actually make it, and then it's sort of done. Sometimes better biting the bullet and having a few minutes just getting it right, and you ain't got to mess about too much for the rest of the day, you know. That should keep me going then. Ground bait, dead maggot, odd bit of worm in it. Now I've got that here, I can just carry on topping up here. Hopefully not worry too much about having to sort of remake it all the time. I'm going to be patient, back out, got a fresh hook on. Shallowed it up a tiny bit. Just put my plummet on, see if they've dug it out, and they've not. But now that wind's dropped, I just want to be able to see them little dinks. So I've just, not a lot, but just took sort of half an inch off the depth. Got an hour and a half to go. It's perfect for that long pole now, it's gone calm. Really hoping the carp haven't moved in, and that's why we're getting this quiet period. Well, that's a good sign, little skimmer's back. Just going to keep ticking away on this now. Hour and a half to go, just under. I'm hoping everyone else now will start to maybe have an odd carp problem and missed a bite then, that's not what you want to do. They love ground bait, they love that regular potting in a ground bait. Definitely lulling here now. I'm going to really give myself a chance. I'm actually got some casters where I'm going to start throwing them heavy short on the line in front of me. One as a bit of a distraction for the carp to come in there out of the way, but also it's just a chance line for bigger skimmers. Definitely gone a bit funky out there now, gang, like bumped a couple then. Just a bit weird at the minute. You know what I'm going to do? Feed on the ball. Have a little drop in close just to rest it, in the hope that when I go back out they'll just have resettled, because they're gone a little bit scatty now. How long have we got? I'm going to feed a little ball as well. To the left, because it's gone all weird on that main spot. I just wonder if I start fresh just here. I wonder if they'll like regather there. can actually see a little bit of fizzing coming up from this edge. Now I'm sort of feeling like we need that run of better ones to do any good after this lull. Before I felt like we were just doing enough to keep in the chase sort of thing. A little go, yeah. Got an hour and 10 minutes. I know it's not gone under yet, but you only need that run of big uns on something like this and right back on it. It's the kind of line that if they are there, you'll drop it in and get one pretty quick, so it's daft. Sat waiting. So, hour to go, Pinocchios, definite lull, definitely fallen a little bit here. My gut of guts is to come back now, I need to catch some better fish, and I don't know where that's happening other than on the close line, which is pretty down and out, can't really catch anything there. Out here, long, still catch odd little skimmer, just not strong enough for like winning, which is obviously what we come here to do, to win, to qualify. But I'm going to give it last chance saloon. We've got an hour, so I'm going to give it another little run long, see what we catch. I've actually started a second line long because my first one was so slow, just so I can kind of keep flitting between them and hopefully putting one in the net. But unless we drop in out here now and have a nice surprise with a few better ones, I think it's going to be a tricky task. But you never know on these events, like that's why we feed them closer lines that a big bream can turn up on. Even half an hour to go, still confident that dropping in down here you can nail some, definitely can. Done it before, you can catch 12 or 15 pound in no time at all, so try and put some more fishing net out there, and then we'll have another look short in the killing period, let's say, last 30 minutes. Really do a few little bonuses out there though now, just to sort of put us right back in it. You might notice there though, that little rest, like this were iffy before I came off it, dead iffy. Hardly could catch one, and just that little rest, coming off it, dropping short. I mean, I didn't catch out short, but I gave myself the chance of a big one. And then I just dropped back in and had, 2 and 2 chucks. Hopefully I'll get another little flurry here now. Definitely not had it right and could have fished a bit differently. I think you could have fished 2 lines long with ground bait, left and right, and just sort of battered between them, fed one, fished the other, fed the other, fished, and switched and changed that way rather than long and short. But I mean, short could still come good. So many times on these matches, like that last half an hour, even last 20 minutes, them game-changing fish start to feed. Little run again out there. I mean, if it had just stayed like that, we'd have been right in it, I think. Really, really annoyingly close. I hope everyone else has a lull, really. Just thinking what, I mean, don't know what I got. Must have close to £20. But John Arthur had 26 sort of an hour ago. Andy May were admitting to 23 an hour ago. So unless I get a run of big uns and they have a real poor last hour, I'm going to take some catching, that is. Anything's possible. That's the beauty of fishing. Could do one of them double figure bream we had in the vlog. Well, say we, Frankie. It's annoying because that little iffy period that we had, we upped that carp and definitely sent them a bit weird. You only need a little spell like that where it unsettles them, and that's why I'm a bit off that I didn't have 2 ground bait lines long, because if I'd have hooked a carp on one of them like I did, I could have maybe got away with just dropping in on the other side and sort of keeping catching. Instead, I've only got this one. Like that then. I waited far too long for that one. I'm going to feed again. Keeping that edge fed, just going to feed just that one spot. I don't feel like we have enough time to sort of mess about with both now. I will definitely have a little look before we finish, sort of 20 minutes, half an hour to go, just because that's your run, that's your lifeline of getting a run of big uns that can still win it. Is so important never to give in on it. So important. Just chosen just to pick that one now. It's too late to be sort of trying both. Ever so strange, you just no bites all of a sudden. Last look, and then we're going to have the last half hour. About 35 minutes to go now, so this is going to be my sort of last chance to really make it work down there. So I'm going to last dropping out here, and I'm going to feed this, have a little look in that edge. Little things like that, it's just a sign. I mean, very, very small skimmers, that's just not good enough. It's just not strong enough to I'm going to feed a biggish ball. Big one-hander, that sort of size, out there. Come off it. There's best chance of a little run of big uns out there after we've fed it again now. I think it'll really blow it if not anyway. And then if whole section stuck. I'll have to fish with it like that till the end. But then, this is the chance in the edge. I'm going 2 nice dead maggots. Not going to feed it to start with, and then see if we can get one. I mean, ideally now I need a run of them big Glebe bream. Not even going to say skimmers. I'm going to say bream. Could happen. Definitely could still happen. Gotta have the faith. I mean, it's prime time for this to slot under. Just not moving at all. I mean, it's not worked today, but that line sort of in between the bottom of the slope and the shallow water in the edge, it can be so good, especially early in the silverfish season, October, November, and also late like February and March. It can be so good when them fish are still happy to come into shallow water. Today, definitely not worked. I'm really surprised we haven't even drawn any carp in, shafting all that ground bait down there. Absolutely incredible. Little quick look here, just because I was shocked they were none there. This is the only place I've had a bite short, so I just wanted to make sure they've not settled in front of me just here. I don't think they will have. Incredible how few bites there are. Obviously all the fish are out in the lake, deepest water. I'd have been better, you know, fishing a bit further out on a close line as well, but you'd never have known that at the start. Probably all that rain we've had has just pushed them into deeper water. And this really is the sort of last chance. If we can catch a run of these out there, it is an opportunity. I've had that big ball before I come off it. You get a late run of some better ones, there's a chance, but we've only got half an hour. Probably a pound and a bit in. But that's the chance now. Got to hope that there's quite a few of them gathered on that bait. The fact it took a bit longer to get a bite, and it's a bigger one when we've had one, could be there. They could be there. Six or eight of them now in half an hour. It's not a. I mean, it is a tall order, but it's possible if they gathered there. You go and tell your mates I want some bigger ones. Well, literally 2 minutes to go now, gang. Yeah, minute and a half to go. I think, you know what, I think it's been I bet when the scales come round, I bet it's been a really fair match. I've really struggled the last hour, but sort of 90 minutes to go, I could feel it fading. I think in hindsight though, not been on a bad peg at all, and if I could come back, I'd really focus my efforts on the long pole. Not sure pellets were right to start with. If I'm 100% honest, I feel like I've fished quite a positive match in terms of feeding and how I've fished, when really if I'd have just sort of fished a traditional winter silverfish match and took it a lot steadier, especially topping up later on this line, I feel like I've probably pushed it over the edge a little bit. And if I'd have took it a little bit steadier, you know, smaller top ups, maybe loose fed a little bit, or just kindled a little bit of ground bait in with a pole pot, might have been able to keep catching some. Definitely needed 2 ground bait lines long today as well. I think all in all, hey, look at that, one to finish, fish on. I think overall though, I think if I came back, I'd fish a negative ground bait line long where I fed pellets, just sort of a little nugget, a positive one, 3 or 4 pots of ground bait where I've fished positively, and then I'd fish a little bit further out on the short pole, and I think you'd have caught a few of these little fellas just fishing nicely with maggots there. But fish to win the match, in all honesty, were the pegs strong enough? I think for it to fade as much as it has, probably not. But if the weights are close, I don't know what I've got, I might have 20 pounds. If a high 20 pound qualifies, I will be angry, not to swear, but I'm hoping that, you know, sort of 35 pounds going to qualify. I don't think we had a chance of catching that. But yeah, definitely could have fished different there and learnt a lot. But nice to get back into the groove of commercial silvers. That season's on us now, innit? Can't wait for the next qualifier. Disappointing result, but what I'd say is I'm happy with the fact that when it got to that last 2 hours and things started fading, I really gave myself a chance by feeding some bait positively on them closer in lines, and so gambling a little bit in terms of, you know, I've probably caught a little bit less. If I'd have just plodded away on that long pole, I might have got to say 40 pound, which is great and better than what I have caught. But in all honesty, personally on these qualifiers, I want to win. Today I needed to win the match to get through to that 12 grand final, which is why I spent a lot of time fishing and pushing my shorter lines, pushing that longer line a little bit more with bait, because I felt like on this particular peg, it's the only way you're ever going to get any volume of better fish into your swim that could have potentially got me to that winning weight. You know, 27 pound, a lot of little skimmers. I only actually had 2 or 3 better ones in that, so tons and tons of bites, which for me is what a lot of these silverfish matches are all about, and we've got a whole winter ahead of us to fish some more of them. Andy May has won the match with just over 60 pound from 5 or 6 pegs to my right, down on about peg 8 I think he were. Phenomenal day's fishing, and interestingly he's caught quite a lot of fish short. He's one of the only ones on the match that's done it, so I'll be really interested to find out exactly what he's done. And he's filmed a live match for Winning Ways too, so if you wanted to watch that one, head over to Winning Ways and you can have a little look. You don't want to qualify for these too early, because there's another 4 or 5 months ahead of us of fishing these matches, so hopefully I'll see you again on Match Day Live, and maybe even this year we'll do another live match on one of the big silverfish qualifiers. Thanks for watching, gang.